What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the SummerSlam 2015 edition of WWE The Day Of, which is noteworthy because they never do all the events, as far as I can remember, for these Day Of episodes, which are always very good. This is the first one that I can remember that they've done an old pay-per-view from years ago. Now, this was 5 years ago, and I very much enjoyed this for a variety of reasons. One, because it was old content, as well as the fact that I was at that show. It was 5 years ago from when this came out, almost exactly. 5 years ago, it was 5 years and a week to when the pay-per-view happened. It happened on August 23rd, exactly 5 years from this year's SummerSlam pay-per-view, which I was so fucking pissed that SummerSlam wasn't in Boston this year, because I was going to be at that show too, and it would have been cool to be at SummerSlam 5 years apart on the exact same day of August 23rd. It couldn't happen due to the current circumstances, but we did get this Day Of on SummerSlam 2015, which was a very big show, and not only for the reasons of it being, John Cena versus Seth Rollins, title for title, as well as Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker in a WrestleMania 30 rematch. Those two marquee matches carried this show, but it was also in a number of ways a big turning point for WWE. The product that fall fucking sucked, but you had Jon Stewart on the show. His involvement was great. It was not the first WWE pay-per-view in the Barclays Center by any means. It was one of the first. It was a great venue in Barclays. It was the first SummerSlam in almost 6-7 years to not take place in Los Angeles. For the first time, I think, since 2008, to not take place in LA, which was pretty noteworthy. And not only that, too, but it was the first, I think, WWE pay-per-view, except for WrestleMania, to be 4 hours long, because it was such a stacked show. And not every match was amazing by any means, but it was a very fun show overall. TakeOver Brooklyn happened the day before. They just did an Untold on that for Sasha Banks and Bayley, which was amazing. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this episode of WWE The Day Of. It was a nice trip down memory lane. They start off with Seth Rollins talking about getting custom boots done for the pay-per-view, where, again, his biggest match up to that point in his career as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion at that point, facing John Cena for his United States Championship. A big title-for-title match, which now I feel like we see a lot in WWE, a lot of dual champions, but when Seth did it 5 years ago, it felt fresh. And I'm sure they were inspired by Jay Lethal doing it in Ring of Honor literally 2 months beforehand. I'm sure that's where this idea came from, but it was still cool. So we also see a lot of Jon Stewart from The Daily Show on this episode of Day Of from SummerSlam 2015. He was a big part of this pay-per-view. He was involved in the build. They had Rollins on his show earlier that year. They had a feud going into WrestleMania, so that was cool. Stewart was like, I hope to not be physically assaulted in my in my involvement tonight at SummerSlam. Now, he wasn't on the show itself, but when he showed up on Raw the next night, he got AA'd by John Cena. So he was physically assaulted then, but not on this show, as Cena sought vengeance for what happened to him here at this pay-per-view. But Stewart's son Nate does meet The Undertaker out of character. That was really cool. They chatted up at ringside with Scott Hall, Pat Patterson, X-Pac, Kevin Nash, which was a really cool sight to see. And the best part about it was that Stewart, you can tell, not only is his son in the WWE, Stewart is a fan himself. So the fact that he's not already in the WWE Hall of Fame as a celebrity in that celebrity wing is beyond me. I literally said it that night to people as I was leaving SummerSlam. If this guy isn't inducted into the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame at some point, this shit is rigged. And we already know it's rigged, obviously, and it means nothing, but it still would be nice, just because I thought he was so cool and he came across great, and he's a genuine fan. You could tell from his interactions with such legends on this episode. And it even says, my admiration for these wrestlers has always grown, from when I was a kid to now having my kid watch it, which is cool. And he calls this SummerSlam show an incredible card. We also hear from Seth Rollins, who says it's been an incredible 6 months, dating back to when he cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase successfully to become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion in the main event of WrestleMania 31, and they show the cash-in in its entirety, which was awesome. He says that it's cool that Triple H and the McMahons have faith in him to be the guy in WWE, and that, listen, my schedule is more hectic than it's ever been, but it's been everything that I could have asked for and more. We also hear from Ric Flair, and obviously he was a part of the show as well, in a way, because John Cena and Rollins. Had John Cena beaten Rollins, he would have tied Ric Flair's record at that point, which he ended up doing like a year and a half later, but he would have done it then and tied Flair's record to become a 16-time world champion. And he knows the match is going to be big. We hear from fans outside of the arena giving their predictions for Rollins and Cena. Unfortunately, I was not a part of that. I think I showed up to the arena a little late. I did. I was actually there on time for SummerSlam. TakeOver, I got in right as the doors opened. I wasn't waiting outside beforehand, which I assume is when they filmed this stuff, but I was not a part of the footage here, unfortunately. At any rate, they show Cena getting his nose shattered by Seth Rollins on Raw a couple of weeks before the pay-per-view, which was legitimate. He hit an errant knee on Cena during their match on Raw, and it, broke Cena's nose bad. It was a pretty bad break. And you would never know looking at him now, but it was pretty bad at the time. So that was when Rollins challenged Cena to a title-for-title match at the pay-per-view, and he thinks fans will feel that intensity come Sunday at SummerSlam. He does wish that he bought some white hair ties to match his new white gear, and we see this just great 30-second clip of him backstage with Brie Bella, Becky Lynch's current, wife-to-be or whatever, his current, he's about to have a kid with her. She's backstage, he's chatting it up with her. And I think a WWE writer and maybe somebody else, but Brie even brings up, oh yeah, the gear looks awesome, blah, blah, blah. She says that Rollins looks like the fans' messiah. No joke, that's what she said, and this was 5 years ago. Who knew that Brie Bella was a fucking psychic? I thought that was cool. I mean, who knew? I thought that was awesome. But he says this match and everything for him moving forward is all about creating a legacy. And I aim to be better every day. I aim to make this company better. I aim to make everyone involved in this company better. And he still has that mindset. Having talked to him a couple of weeks ago for an interview, he still has that mindset to this day, which is really cool. He just wants to prove to the world that he's the best. So they recap Cena and Rollins, who had an incredible match for both belts. The finish was a bit tainted by the interference from Jon Stewart, but just the sheer fact that Rollins won, not Stewart, with the help of Stewart, was awesome, and it was a great moment. And they talk afterwards, Stewart and Rollins and Stewart's kid Nate, which was really cool. You could tell Rollins was genuinely appreciative of his involvement in the match and how he almost screwed it up, but he didn't. And Stewart says that he has great respect for Seth Rollins and John Cena, calling the match great, and he has great respect for the rest of the WWE wrestlers. So we hear from Rollins once more. He calls the crowd electric, which we were. That crowd was amazing that evening in Barclays in Brooklyn. But he says that he hopes that they enjoy the match as much as he did. And he was congratulated afterward by a number of people, including the McMahons and Stephanie, Triple H. We see him getting congratulated by, I don't know if it was Pat Patterson or Michael Hayes. It was a bunch of people, including taking a picture with Corey Graves, who was a sheer announcer in NXT at that point. And he called it a great night in Brooklyn. And that was it. It was a very quick episode. It's only about, maybe not too quick. It's like 18 minutes, though. But it was a very good episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, check it out right now on the WWE Network. WWE the day of SummerSlam 2015. And I hope they do more of these in the future on older pay-per-views if they have the footage. I think that'd be cool. They didn't start doing these as YouTube exclusives until 2017. So it's cool to see they had a lot of backstage, footage from these shows, even if they were 5 years ago, which I think is awesome. So yeah, they are doing 2 more of these in the weeks to come on SummerSlam 2020, as well as Payback 2020. So be sure to check those out. Check out all my other WWE The Day Of reviews in the description box down below, right here on the channel. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.